Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast. I'm your host, Charles Kiriakou. It's currently 7 p.m. on a Friday, so you know I'm extremely committed to getting the best content. I'm joined by Michael, who I've known my entire life. We'll get to his introduction in a moment. But just want to say from the outset, yeah, like I said, it's late on a Friday. Baby's keeping me up, but I'm committed. We've done this for, I think, 88 Tuesdays in a row. So yeah, if you're new here, guys, please just make sure that you follow, all that kind of good stuff. And if you're returning, thanks. I really, really appreciate it. So Michael, as I've mentioned, we've known each other our entire lives, right?
Yeah.
I got you your first job in recruitment, and yeah, this has been a long time in the making, man. So just tell people a little bit about you, your background, your story, etc.
Yeah, of course. Look, I think when I first got into recruitment, you got me an admin gig at Sensible Staffing, and I'll never forget that. It was a time where I think I was about 18, saving up to go traveling. I was going to go on a short interrailing trip. Was there for the gig was meant to be about 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
I think after 2 months, they said, look, there's no more kind of admin work to do. Mm-hmm. And I remember there was a Cypriot director at the time, and he really wanted me to kind of stay on. So I think his kind of word was, look, go interrailing, come back. I definitely want you on the team. Whether that's because I'm Cypriot or not, I don't know. But I'd like to say it's because my admin skills were great. But, it's one of those things where at the time I was never expecting to be a millionaire, but I think it was, the money didn't seem great. It was, your first 10 deals, you make nothing. There was also an element where it was kind of a dog-eat-dog world. It was very shark mentality there, huge office, open plan. Mm-hmm. There was probably camaraderie within the desks and the divisions.
Yeah, the specific divisions there were, yeah.
But it just didn't feel, like the place. And, I remember, I told myself after there, I was like, I'm never going to do recruitment again. This is it. I'm in and out, mate. Thanks for the money. I'm gone. Went interrailing, had a great time. I went around Europe, had a really, really good time with friends. Traveling is a huge part of what I love and enjoy doing.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that later.
And yeah, that's obviously going to come later on as well. But, I think one of the main things when I came out, I was a bit lost. One of my best friend's uncle, he has a florist. So I was working there in Highgate Village. Done that for about a year. Really tough work, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Then from there, it was like I wanted to become a chef. So I became like a junior kind of sous chef, kitchen washer, just do anything kind of person. Mm-hmm. Done that for a year. Really, really didn't like it professionally. Mm-hmm. It's tough, but still very two industries that were very tough in terms of. When I was working at Highgate, you had clientele there that were millionaires. Mm-hmm. They were coming in and would say, like, I want you to put together 60, 70 roses. I can barely put 2 together. You want me to put 70 together. It's like, didn't make sense. And then you're in the kitchen, it's like, it's hot in there, man. It's that, and you meet some characters, but done that, finished. I always knew I wanted to get back into business, but I didn't know what. So, I started looking at marketing jobs, everything and anything, selling tech, selling this, selling that. Applied to a couple of recruitment jobs, and then I landed my gig at Vivant. So I was with Vivant Consultants for 6 years, and that's really where my recruitment career took off. Yeah. It was a great time, learned a lot of challenges, a lot of ups, a lot of downs. Mm-hmm. Started there as a trainee, kind of worked my way up through to becoming a consultant. Straight after that, things were kicking off really quickly. Started to build a team around me, building a division. So initially, I was doing UK recruitment when I started, but the company was transitioning to the US. Mm-hmm. Bigger fees, bigger money, bigger everything really. And then I transitioned from UK to US recruitment. I was basically a consultant when they had transitioned. So I was doing a bit of 180 at the time, but I was building up Canada. And, okay. I kind of had a chip on my shoulder where it was like, there's a whole country here. No one's doing anything. I'm going for that, and I think it was one of those years that taught me a lot because I ended up winning Best Business Developer at the end of the year. I could have made a lot more money if I'd just done 180 and service positions that were there, but I wanted to prove something. And then from there, I kind of got to a point, whilst I was building a team, pulling in business, I was servicing all of my Canada roles, 90% of it to my team, whilst I focused on US. Logistically, it's like, it just made the most sense. I think one of the things within that, you know, when you're building a team, you know, it's about the culture. You know, when I started the company, there was, you know, 4 or 5 people to the point where I left. You know, there was quite a few people in the company, but you're building that culture. You come into work, you enjoy it. And it was chalk and cheese compared to, you know, when I first done recruitment until then. I then kind of wrapped up there. I always, like I said, loved traveling. So I wanted to travel, parted ways there on good terms. It was really hard to leave, you know, in terms of kind of, you know, building a desk up and kind of, you know,
and reputation as well.
Everything, you know, you're leaving a lot of money behind, your reputation, but also it's what you know and what I've done for so long. You know, 6 years is a long time to kind of just be in one position, one job. Then I went to Latin America.
Did you go for a year, did you, across all of South America?
Yeah,
it's mad. I remember like following your vlogs and stuff,
Yeah,
and it's like
yeah.
just madness.
Yeah, it was insane. It was, I went with 3 boys to South America. Incredible. Everything about it. Done Argentina, Uruguay, Brazil, Colombia, Bolivia, Peru. You know, it was really, really good. So done that for about 6 months. My Spanish in the beginning was terrible. Going into it, I was on Duolingo for a couple of months. Got to Argentina, I was like, I'm like fluent Spanish. Mate, in Argentina, the way they talk so quick, I was like, I'm cooked. I'm actually cooked. But as the trip went on, I started to learn a lot more Spanish. I was then meant to go to Asia. So my plan was fly back to London. Really, it was just to get like a new outfits. Just get like new clothes. But I got to see my mum as well. So I came back. The airline lost my bag. It's crazy. So within the time they lost my bag, I was meant to be in London for 2 weeks and then go straight to Asia. They lost my bag and it was like indefinite. And I was like, all right. So I done 2 weeks there. Went to go see my dad for about 2-3 weeks because I thought I'm waiting for my bag to kind of be
Dad's
found.
In Cyprus.
Dad's in Cyprus. And then I had to come back to London to get my bag. And I was like, if I'm coming back to London, does it make sense to then go back? Ended up going to Central America because I thought my Spanish is getting better. Why not? Then I done 6 months alone. My trip ended short because I ended up cutting my hand, as you know. But it's a story for another day. But yeah, really, really good times. Came back. Didn't really know what I wanted to do at the time. You know, there were so many different things kind of going through my head. It's like, do I want to stay in construction? Do I want to try something new? And, you know, I'm always someone that kind of has a chip on my shoulder. You know, I want to prove myself you know, kind of prove other people that I can kind of make these things happen. So for me, it was like, let's get into the tech world. You know, let's kind of do tech. So joined a company called MLC, really great people. I was sold on the project there. You know, I really enjoyed everyone. My manager as well, he was a top manager. Like I really, really liked him and got along with him. But you know, at the time, it was just not clicking. A lot of it was kind of DDAT, so digital data and tech across sort of public sector, NHS. And it wasn't just clicking. It wasn't clicking. Different style of recruitment, going out, meeting people, going for coffees, speaking to candidates, speaking to clients. I didn't not like that. It was just a kind of different world.
You're used to doing the US stuff though, where it's all quite fast-paced and remote and stuff like that, versus the slower kind of nurturing relationships in person is different.
Completely different. And then...
Hey guys, quick one before we jump back into the episode. If you are a recruiter who feels like half your week disappears into admin, follow-ups, data cleaning and jumping between several different tools, then listen up because this episode is officially sponsored by Sourcewell. Sourcewell is the recruitment productivity platform, and I don't just mean another tool that you'll forget to use. I mean the tool that actually gives you your time back. You can run your entire desk in one place. Outreach, sourcing, data enrichment, multi-step email and LinkedIn sequences, inbox management, and even call notes. It's all there, synced, automated, and according to their stats, recruiters using Sourcewell see 56% higher response rates, double the pipeline, and approximately save around 8 hours of admin every single week. If you're like me, admin as a recruiter is the devil, and this productivity platform really helps you save a load of time. So reach out to Sourcewell, go to sourcewell.com. It's a fantastic platform. I've used it myself. I really believe in it, and I'm super grateful for them sponsoring the podcast. Let's get back into the episode.
Look, after maybe 5-6 months, I didn't kind of want to waste enough time, not only for myself, but for them. Because it kind of got to that point where, for me, I didn't want to get to a point where I was wasting their time and wasting my manager's time. So kind of parted ways. Then I had a 2-month buffer. And it was, my whole thing was, I want to find something that makes sense. You know, I don't want to jump back into something and it looks bad on kind of your CV. So I was like, you know, what do I want to do? I know construction, it's what I've done, it's been my bread and butter. The tech world is booming, data centers are flying at the moment. Why not merge the two? So I'm at Empiric at the moment, great company, completely different to Vivant in terms of scale, a lot bigger presence. You know, they're covering markets all over the world. You know, they do a lot in the US, a lot across all of Europe, 2 offices in Europe, HQ in London, 1 in Scotland. They've also got 2 operations and offices in the US, 1 in New York, 1 in Tampa. Primarily, they've been around for 20 years. A lot of what they do is on sort of the tech side of things. So coming into this, it's kind of merging the two. A lot harder work in terms of building something from scratch, but it's kind of what I know. The positions are the same. You know, it's a project manager is a project manager, a project engineer is a project engineer. It's just learning the differences about data centers. What's inside? What are the challenges? You know, apart from that, everything's completely the same.
It's like I did sales recruitment for 6 years. Similar type of like story with your time at Vivant. Similar type of thing to me, like best business developer on my first full year and stuff. Like if I were to go into recruitment and do like recruitment now, to do what you do would be a learn. Like I'd know the process. Like I'd know how to like generate leads and like spec out and stuff. But like learning the roles and the intricacies, the nuances would be difficult. But if you said, oh, in our business we are doing, you know, we're recruiting tech salespeople, it's fine. I know what to spot on a sales CV. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So that's the way I understood what you were saying.
That's also probably part of ML. When I was at MLC, it was trying to learn the tech side of things. You know, and I'd be speaking to a project manager there, and I'm thinking like construction senses, trying to piece things together. It just doesn't click. You think it can, and some recruiters can work in any industries. For me, it was just, I think I'd done one thing for too long, and it's just a completely different world, you know.
Well, if you think about it, right, and because we're going to unpack your time at Vivant and how you were top biller 4 years in a row and stuff, right? When I've spoken to a load of top billers, had many on the podcast and leaders on the podcast that really do really well themselves. Everyone talks about like dominating your space, being a market expert, right? Not necessarily like knowing the ins and outs of being an engineer, but what does a good engineer look like? How do you get them to progress their career? How do you manage that interview process, etc.? You can't just learn that overnight. Like I was speaking to a founder earlier today, actually, and I was saying that recruiters don't realize how lucky they are these days with the power of AI, right? If I was to join your team, for example, I would be able to learn your market significantly quicker without even speaking to a candidate. You still have to speak to people because you learn more about your market and stuff from speaking to people rather than just ChatGPTing it. But before, you could Google stuff. But I spoke to a guy the other day who, on long drives, he has conversations with ChatGPT to learn about new skills.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. So like if I was to join your team as a new recruiter now, I could just literally, on my way to work, just be back and forth with ChatGPT. Like, what's the intricacies of what this project engineer does? Cool. and then that's how I'd learn. And then when I get into the office, at least I have something that doesn't make me sound like a complete noob on the phone. Do you know what I mean?
But then this is the thing, with the sort of AI world now. It's changed recruitment. It's changed recruitment, and how do you stay relevant in a market when anyone can do it? With the tools.
Yeah.
Because I remember speaking to people that, for instance, the owner of Vivant, when he first started 20 years ago, he was on Yellow Pages.
Yeah.
He was calling people he had no idea. He would look up companies, call into a company and ask to speak to someone in design. Do you have someone in design? Or can I speak to someone in your project management department? Julie picks up the phone. Hi, Julie, my name's I'm selling you the... it was completely different world. Whereas totally now different. You can get AI to do everything for you. Who are the best leaders in this space? How should I target them? Do you have a plan for me to target them? And everything's accessible, but the problem is, how do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah.
And how are you human? How are you relevant? And it's hard because
100%.
Being a top recruiter, there's so many different elements. There's people that smash the phones. There's people that smash the emails, getting specs out. There's people that are good at everything. And I think what helped me at Vivant, when I came in, I was a bit naive. I was young. I was probably 20, 21 at the time. And you kind of like run through brick walls, because it's like, go do this, go do that. And you're like, yes, yes, yes. And then, my first year probably didn't go to plan. It was like,
pretty normal.
It was like I had a 50% dropout rate. Just in terms of, it was all permanent recruitment. So people getting offered and not taking the job, not them starting and leaving. And then, it was that thing where it got to Christmas that year and I was like, I'm going to quit. It's tough, and I don't want to do this. I'm just not too sure. For whatever reason, I stuck it through. Things obviously got better, started building my market, but it comes with research. You have to want to be involved in that sector. And I think where it really starts is, and I say to people, for instance, if you recruit in a certain sector, is that a sector you would invest in the stock market? And if it's no, is it a sector you should be recruiting in? Because you want to be in a sector that's engaging, that
passionate about,
has your passion, and you want to be involved in, and is it going to grow? And construction, I didn't think I would love it, but we worked with clients that were building the Gherkin, the Shard, like really intricate projects. We worked with different layered clients, on the consultancy side, subcontractors, general contractors. What are the differences between them all? But I think what I learned as I was kind of growing within the company was, I've got to take something from everyone. I like that he's good at saying this. I like she's good at doing that. I like he's good at that. You kind of mix everything together. You put your own little spin on it, because it's about being authentic, because if you're, otherwise they'd just be robots, just talking to robots.
100%. Well, what you said there is gold, by the way. That's one of the first things I ever got taught when I did social care recruitment for a few months. Similar to what you said about that role you had, and after a few months you were like, it's not really for me. My first ever role was an apprentice. I took that job over Sensible because it paid £400 a month more, which in hindsight mental, right? But I took that job. It was literally a 20-minute walk from my house. I was like, yep, sound. And then after like speaking to clients and candidates, like after like week 2, I was like, this is shit. I don't like what you said there about investing in the stock. Would I invest in social care? No, like it's not really a bit of me. The CVs were like 15 pages long. I was like, this is so long. So I just didn't want to do that. But there was a couple of things that I learned, because we were in a cohort as apprentices, all started together. And I remember the director said, like, look around the room, everyone's on the phone, everyone's standing up, selling. Find something that someone does, and if you like it and you're inspired by it, take that in, like the Thanos' Infinity Stones, and then make it your own. And what was, I thought, again, because I didn't really have the greatest time there, but one thing that she did say is, like, the first time I ever called someone and it got through to voicemail, and the first time you ever leave voicemail, you shit yourself, didn't you? And then it's quiet for a second, you're an apprentice, you're just like, oh my God. And then I left the voicemail, and then the director turned around and went, that was amazing. And I was like, well, it's like, you're a natural on the phone. And when you're young and a senior person that's been doing recruitment 20 years goes, oh, you're a natural at this, that was amazing. You're like, oh shit, okay. And then either when you're like 20 years old, you have proper anxiety and you just don't want to do anything, or you're that person that just runs through walls.
Yeah.
And for me, I was similar to you. Like, we're very, very similar. Chip on the shoulder, just like, right, I'm going to just run through fucking walls and do this. Yeah. But I think that's so valuable. Like, I always say this to people, and especially to businesses that are thinking about hiring people into the company, and they ask me about like, how do I structure a training program or an academy and stuff like that. And I'm like, give them the basics, give them foundations, like how to do a spec out, how to, structure a call, how to do a cold call, etc., etc. But then allow them the freedom and the flexibility to find their own, right? Similar to like football analogies. When you see like football teams and they're just possession football and there's no like maestros or like magicians on the field, it's just pass, 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 and it's boring. And it's just a bunch of robots, and then like, it's no fun. You get recruiters that are just following a script, and then they might say something a little bit cheeky. It's like, no, that's not company policy. It's like, let people be themselves, right? Yeah. There's a slight caveat. Like when I was 22, 23 years old, I was a little bit too much myself. I'm on the phone speaking to a client, it's fucking bollocks, innit? Like that. And everyone's like, whoa, don't swear. And I'm like, I'm being myself. And it's like, obviously there's an element of being professional, but you've got to find your style. Yeah. And then once you find that style, triple the fuck down into it, and then the little things that you're not so good at, get incrementally better at those things. But whatever you're really good at, which is my next question for you, that's what you should go, right, if I'm good at that, fucking triple down.
But also I had the luxury at Vivant, because when I joined there was like 4 people. They had a wider team, but a lot of people had left at the time. There was only about, I think it was 4 and me, so 5. So I was looking at the seniors there, and the ones that were really good, it was like, why is this person good? Yeah. Why like someone that isn't just successful, you don't just wake up and you're successful, so you kind of have to spin all these things together. But it's also about adapting. One of the biggest things in recruitment is if you're the same recruiter you were 5 to 10 years ago, some people will look at it and say you shouldn't change.
If you've made it this far into the episode, do everybody a favour and just like or favourite this particular episode. Make sure you're following, make sure you're subscribing, whatever platform it is. And if you're not going to do it for me or because of the love of the show, do it for Marshall, the star of the show. Do it for Marshall, because if you don't like this, if you don't follow it, if you don't upvote it or subscribe, Marshall's going to be really upset, and no one wants to see Marshall upset. So do everyone a favour and like, follow, subscribe, whatever platform it is, and Marshall will be happy. Anyway, let's get back into this episode, shall we?
But if you're not changing with the times and how things are going, in terms of your personality, that should always stay the same. But
to an extent.
But if you're not adapting with the times and how things are going, you're not going to keep up with markets. And then I think, a huge part was so my second year was the year I won Best Business Developer. So my first year, I always remember like awards were so huge, and like I really wanted them. It was like my first year I won, I think it was Best Newcomer. My second year I won Best Business Developer. My third year, I get to a point where I'm just about to start building a team. I bring sort of 1 or 2 people on. COVID hits. And you know what? It was one of the best times. Not for the world, but for me, because it was one of the best times because US, it didn't shut down. It stayed open. So 95% of my friends were furloughed, and there was also an element where I was like watching them go out every day and like go to the park and all these things, and I'm like, I've got to work like throughout this whole period, and I really knuckled down. And I'll never forget, there was something that switched that year, which kind of put me into next gear, because I remember everyone got sent home April. I blanked for 2 months, and I kind of forgot what it was like to blank. But also it was like, I was a mid-level consultant, and I was like, oh, this is it. Where, we were all trying to make it work. Blanked for 2 months. I ended up doing a placement with a client, but because it wasn't a job they were actually listing and hiring for, we had to give them for free because they were just like, well, it's either we don't take them. So, you know, me and my old boss, we kind of sat there and thought, if we scratch their back, maybe it will come back and help us. So we said, look, take the candidate. I then go and bill that third month 100K
in a month.
It was the biggest month I've ever done, ever. You know, and you think in a time where the world was going crazy.
What sort of fees were you operating on?
I mean, what the biggest one, typically like 20%, maybe 18 to 20%, something like that at the time.
What sort of fee though? Like with you?
The biggest one out of that month was like 48K.
Okay.
Candidate was on 240. He was like a VP.
Nice.
He was covering kind of design and delivery, and operations as well. But it was also a thing where I was doing so much work, I was stuck because at the time I was in my flat. You know, you've been to my flat, you know, my mum's flat, and it's, you know, it was that thing where I was, you know, there's not a lot of space. So it's like my living room is my bedroom and my this and my that. So it was I was just on the computer 24/7. I was making calls. And then, I mean, that month came and I couldn't even believe it. You know, it's like you go from blanking, the world's tearing apart, you know, all your friends are furloughed, and then I was kind of like, Jesus.
You're just raking it in.
And then it was like I was on a clean run because it was like, okay, cool, I've done this. No one had ever done that in the company. So it was like, I kind of took that and it gave me a little glisten, you know, and it was like things were rolling on. And I remember you get paid 2 months in arrears, and with most perm you do anyway. And I remember that month, you know, I had obviously a big paycheck coming in, and I remember getting a phone call from my boss at the time, and he was like, look, we're getting paid tomorrow. I'm just going to let you know, obviously I've been speaking to the accountants today. He was like, look, just well done. Firstly, he was like, I don't think I've ever paid anyone this amount, you know, and he's like, you should be really proud. Don't be stupid with it. He's like, you've not worked hard. And look, I've had to face with different people in recruitment. Some people get cash and blow it.
Yeah.
Some people get cash, they get a Rolex. Some people get cash, they want to buy a house, they want to have things they want to do it for, you know, and, you know, that call really helped. And then I remember I felt sick the next day.
Really?
It's like I kind of woke up, knew I was going to get paid, went onto my NatWest straight away, and I was like, it's less than I thought. Like, what? But then, like, I've obviously realised you get paid that amount in a month, you're going to get stung with tax. Because it's not only like they've calculated you're in the big tax bracket now because of your base, but because you've been paid that in 1 month, I'm sure they were just taking money left, right, and centre. You know, I was, this is not right. But
mate, the first time that ever happens for recruiters, like when I moved from Sensible to Projectus, like their culture was so different, where people were like openly going like, "Oh, what's your paycheck? Oh, sick, man, well done." I was like, what? People are showing each other's paychecks? Like, this is really, really weird. The first time I ever got like an over 5-figure paycheck, like I remember looking at it and going like, Simon, what the fuck? Like that. And he went, it's a really good problem to have that. And I went, that's disgusting. It's like half of it's gone. He was like, that's a really good problem to have. And I'm telling all my mates, like, bro, I've been taxed like 5K. And they're like, I don't even earn that a month. I'm just like, oh, now I sound like a prick. Like,
I've been there, and I think in the beginning it was the same. You know, when you first, maybe not that example, but when you start getting taxed, it's like, God, like what? And everyone that used to be above me and that was billing more than me, they would always say, look, it's where you need to be.
Yeah.
You want to make more money, you need to get taxed more. You know, and I think even just looking back at it, it was like in that 1 month, just off that commission, some people weren't making that in a year off their just base salaries in normal jobs. So it's like I look back and think, God, like, did that really happen? But it all clicked, and end of that year, I ended up getting my, I think I got 2 awards maybe. It was Consultant of the Year for the first time, and it was like first person to ever do 100K, biggest month. So super, super proud. Everyone kind of came back in, you know, after COVID. We start building, you know, we were making more money in COVID than when it was pre-COVID. And and we had those solid clients. And the whole thing about recruitment is having those relationships where, cool, in a period where everything shut down in the world, let's say there were 80 clients, all right, we only had 30 or 40 of them still wanting to work with us, but nailing 30 and 40 is actually slightly easier because you've got less plates to spin, and you can actually just focus on less. You know, so it kind of helped us be a bit more tunnel vision. Then I was bringing more people on, you know, and I think it's challenging going from, you know, a consultant, a big biller, to then a manager.
Yeah, that's
because
it's the hardest year in recruitment is being a billing manager.
It's long, you know. It's long because I remember in the beginning it was like, you know, I'm a people's person. I always have been, and like I always want people to like me. But I never, in the beginning, when you become a manager, it's like you want people to, you want your trainees to like you, but then it's like you need to make sure that, you know, there's some kind of, you know, barriers. Of course, because then it's, you know, they think you're best friends, and then
and if they blank a month and they're just like, it's cool, man, it's cool, and you're like, it's not.
There's a business to run.
100%.
Of course. So that, you know, there's those kind of elements, and then I remember that year done the same thing. Got consultant of the year, which was great. Year after that, I got 3 awards, but I'm trying to remember. It was like I got consultant of the year again. Only ever person to get consultant of the year 3 years in a row. And there was something else, but I really can't remember what it was.
So when you had that like mindset breakthrough during COVID, and then you realised, because I hear this a lot from like recruiters and entrepreneurs, when there's like a gap in the market and they go, if I lock in, I can make a fortune right now, right? So that happens, you have this mindset switch, you grind away, you're working in your mum's small flat in Wood Green, and then all of a sudden you're billing great money. What were the like recruitment behaviours or habits that you created? Like, because I know you said that at Vivant, the spec outs there were phenomenal. You're making lots of calls, which that for me as a coach, as a trainer, it's my biggest pet peeve is when I work with a consultant, they got a red hot lead in front of them, they got that day, and they're like, I'll email them. I'm like, you have a number, fucking call them. It's like, oh, I need to email them first. I'm like, well, I got taught in recruitment that my competitor will call them before I would call them now. And they're like, oh, but what would I say? And I'm like, you're hesitating, bro. Like, you're in the box, take a shot. What are you doing? Like, that pisses me off. But so let's break down what the behaviours were in that breakout year that you done. Like, talk us through like the fundamentals of doing that market, and
of course. I think I've always been huge on volume. I think everything, specking, calling, you want to have a blended approach of everything. For me, you've got to be on the phone. Like, you've got to be on the phone. It's the hardest thing, you know, when you first get there until you've been there for 5-6 years, you've just got to be on the phone, you know. And it was like my phone numbers were probably up there with like being number one, because if you're not speaking to candidates, clients, if you're not making hard calls, for me, one of the biggest things is prioritizing what's the most important thing today. If I've got 10 things to do and I split them into a category, I've got 5 candidates to call today and 5 clients to call today, I would then look at within that, what are the toughest calls I need to make? What are the 2 calls I don't want to make today? They're the first calls I'm doing. I don't want to start off with the easy calls, because you know the call's going to be easy. You know, you're speaking to a candidate, he's looking for a job, that's fine. I'm vetting them, I'm seeing where they want to go, all these kind of details. I want to end on that. I want to have the call where I'm calling a candidate to close them.
Are you familiar with Brian Tracy's, I think he wrote a book called Eat That Frog?
No.
It's exactly what you just described.
Yeah.
Whatever the most awful task is, do that first, eat that frog, move on.
Yeah. Well, for me, it's, I don't want to make this call. I don't want to call this candidate who's 50-50 on taking this job. Because if he doesn't, the client's not going to be happy. I've lost the deal, you know, but that's kind of the mindset you need to have. You know, you need to be in a place where you want to do difficult things. You're not afraid to make difficult calls, because that's what's going to differentiate you. And I think COVID taught me to understand candidates better, because I had more time.
Oh, okay.
I had more time. I was working from home. I could take a call at any time, you know, and at that time, when I was speaking to candidates, you know, they had a lot of things to say. And sometimes it wasn't about work because the world was burning, you know, like, and that's what it was, you know. And I think there was also that part where I kind of took a step back in my approach, and it's, okay, there's that whole thing of, I'm going to sell you this pen. I've got a pen and I'm going to sell it to you. This pen is great because the ink never runs out and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Instead, what it changed for me was, why would you need this pen? You know? And it was that whole thing of understanding from a candidate, what are you looking for? What are your objectives? Who are you outside of work? Like, and these were things I was doing anyway.
Yeah.
But then that helped me sell differently because now I know what you're looking for. Instead of going in and selling from the beginning.
This is gold.
Yeah.
Like, this, honestly, like when you're saying that, like, it's so similar because we've not really spoken much about like the intricacies of like our careers and stuff. It's so similar, man. And like I had, outside of COVID, it was way before COVID, but I had a very similar mindset shift because I come from fast-paced locum nurses. You're not qualifying a candidate for their need. You're getting to know them and their family and stuff, mainly because you want to understand when they'll be able to do shifts, how far they're going to be able to travel, etc. You build a relationship so they don't want to work with another recruiter because you know that they know that you're going to look after them. But when you do perm and you want to be a consultant, I see so many recruiters, they'll go, oh, hi, Michael, I've seen your CV on Indeed. You could be a great fit for, I've got this fantastic role. I'd like to tell you a little bit about it. Of course, the role. So basically, it's an amazing role. It's with this company doing these really interesting projects and blah, blah, blah. Is this something you'd be open to? I'm not really looking right now. Oh, okay, well, can I send you the job spec and maybe we'll keep in touch? Yeah, all right. Okay, yeah, they're not really a fit right now.
Never hear from them again.
And then they're never going to answer your call ever again. It's like, what? That was a terrible call.
Well, the thing is, you have to remember, you know, as a recruiter, you know, you're the middleman because you're trying to firstly find great talent for the clients you're working with, and then you're also then trying to find candidates jobs that they want and companies that they really want. And it all starts with when you're speaking to your clients and you're pulling these positions and you're getting all these details. You're an extension of that company, whether they want you to be or not. You are. So sometimes you need to ask a million questions about how big's the team, how big's the project, when does the project start, when does it finish, what's the responsibility. The more you know, not just about the job, but the company, it helps you sell. But sometimes people go in and they're selling. And I hear it all the time.
Yeah, off the bat. And it's like, you don't know, your analogy about sell that pen, right? It always makes me laugh because after the Wolf of Wall Street, everyone was like, oh, in interviews, sell me this pen. Yeah, but what if the person don't need a pen?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, how are you going to sell a fucking Mont Blanc pen to someone that's cool with a biro? Like, you stop with the nonsense, right? But the 3 words that changed it for me was when I joined a company called Projectus. 3 words, most important things. Everyone in the office, what's the MITs? Those 3 words were the biggest fucking game changer. And for the first like 100, 200 calls that I made with candidates and clients, cool, that's a really good question. It's not, it's a really basic question. If you're looking for something, what are the 3 most important things? Or just generally, what are the most important things in a new role for you? Speak to a client. When you're partnering with a recruiter, what are the 3 most important, or just overall, what are the most important things about that partnership? When you're looking for a candidate, what are the most important things in that candidate that you're looking for? Then you dig and you chunk down, you do your linear questioning. Why is that important? Why else is that important? Okay, cool. What else is important? Why is that important? And if you get a client, and maybe you've had this as well, oh, you're asking so many questions. Surely you know, bro, like, I'm trying to understand everything about this role so that I don't have to pester you 1,000 times, or even worse, send you a profile that I think is good. I don't want to be in a situation where I think the person's good. I want to be in a situation, but at the end of the week or the end of the fortnight, however long your process is, I know that if you interview these 3, 4, 5 candidates, one of them is going to get that job. That's what the whole idea of the questioning is. And that's what, when you were talking about that mindset shift and really understanding people, and not just what you're looking for in a job, what you're looking for a candidate, but tell me about you as a fucking person. Like, who are you outside of work? Like, because that's another thing about being a recruiter. Like when you're speaking to the client and you're doing a verbal spec out or telling them about a candidate you're about to submit, and you go, oh, they're a really disciplined person outside of work. They've done a couple of marathons. They've got 2 kids, Lisa and fucking Ruth or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like, and they've been married for this amount of time. They're like, fucking hell, you know a lot about this person. Vice versa with the company. You know, you can go on Google, ChatGPT, or their website, and they were founded in 1999. But when you actually really understand the company and the things that aren't necessarily on the website, I'll give you a good example. I worked with a company in Toronto, out of all places. When they were developing the ultrasound technology for prostate cancer, the bloody VP of marketing was diagnosed with early stage prostate cancer, right? Yeah. This weren't on their website, right? This wasn't on their marketing. He then said, let me be the guinea pig for the product to see if we can spot it, right? They used the product and it was like barely visible, right, on normal ultrasound. They spotted it, they got the clinicians, they've run all the trials. That weren't on the website. So now imagine that pitch when you're speaking to a candidate and you're going, the person that runs the marketing division, they trialed this product on him and he's now cleared of prostate cancer. Yeah. Like, what an incredible story. Every time I said that to candidates were buzzing to meet this company. They would throw away their other opportunities to fly from Colorado to Toronto to go do a 12-stage interview. It's so long. But it's like that really getting to understand people, I think, is almost lost at the moment. I was going to write a post about it this morning. I think it's lost now.
I think it really depends on the sector. Some sectors are like your temp is quick. So people are trying to fly candidates in and out.
Speaking perm, because we both mainly did perm, right? Like, if you're getting into perm recruitment now and you're, maybe someone's interviewing, or maybe there's a founder listening to this that goes, oh, fucking hell, that's kind of us, and you're not prioritizing relationships, you're hella transactional. Like, in the world of AI and automation, AI doesn't need to build a relationship. I had a guy on the podcast come around the house. His whole business model is agents. There's no humans, there's no phone calls. It's all automated. Thousands of emails automated all day, scraping every job board, scraping the entire internet for candidates and for jobs. And AI can do that.
You got his number.
It's a good episode, to be fair. But an AI can do all that type of shit. Maybe in the future I'll be proved wrong. But at the moment, when you've got a candidate that's having cold feet before an interview because they've got some limiting beliefs and they don't think they're going to get the job, so they're just going to pull out, a good recruiter is going to be sat there reminding them why they said they were looking to leave, reminding them what their future will look like. You take this job, you've got a clear path to progression. I know progression is important to you because you've got a young family and you want to move out of your mum's flat and you want to get this house. This is why this opportunity is good for you. And I know this sector. Yeah, all right, Michael. Yeah, you really understand me. This is 100%. All right, cool. I'm good. Then they get that job, mate. When you get a candidate a job that they didn't think they could get, and you knew that was going to be the right opportunity for them. And then I've had candidates send me fucking coffee from Africa, flowers, bottles of champagnes, taking me out for meals and stuff. And genuinely, like, that's one of the parts of the role as a recruiter that I miss, is when you place someone that had fucking dozens of interviews and couldn't get anywhere, and then you were that recruiter to help, and vice versa with the client as well. Like, that's
but I think I kind of got to a point where every single call I was making to a candidate and client was just getting better and better and better and better, to the point where, there's probably days where I was like, it probably can't get better. It would be a case where there was an offer on the table, speaking to this candidate, they're like 100% I'm not going to take it, to the point where I would look at the owner and say, this candidate's probably going to take it after this call, and they would. And I think the connect is your first conversation with a candidate is probably it's more important than closing. Because if you don't know your candidate, if you don't know why they're looking to leave, is it financial? Is it they're not happy with progression? Are they traveling too far? There's a million different things that it could be. If that first call, for me, some people rush it, some people oversell and don't listen to the candidate. This is what I've got. This is what I'm selling. It's not about you. Listen. As a recruiter, you need to listen. Not only just to candidates, you need to listen to your clients as well. But I think with candidates, it's about knowing them. How can you work as a partnership? A lot of the time when I'm speaking to candidates, I'm not talking about them. I use we a lot because it's a partnership. We're working together. I don't like the feeling of a candidate thinking, it's you. We're in this together. You prep your candidates properly. If you call them whenever they need to make a call, just to make sure they're feeling okay, or all these other things that it could be. You need to kind of stay on top of it. But I think, one of the big things is, I think in recruitment, when things are going well, that year in COVID, what really switched, and I would say probably one of the biggest factors, look, it's not healthy, but boxing things away. So I know a lot of people in recruitment that, and I'm sure you do, have a good month. They do what they think's good numbers, and they've gone from gear 6 to gear 3 because I'm going to take my foot off the pedal a little bit. I've got loads of other interviews going on. But remember, perm, you're going month by month. This is not contract where you're dribs and drabs every month and you've got them locked in
you're
for a year. Yeah. So the amount of time I've seen people think they've had a great month, they've got loads of interviews, so the next couple of months, this quarter's going to be great. Things fall out, interviews don't go to plan, they've got to start from scratch. What I got really good at was, when I was having fantastic months, boxing it away. I became emotionless. I don't know what it was. It was, I would do great. I would do 3, 4, 5, 6 deals. I put it away. And I just don't get it. When I kind of look back at that time, it was like, it didn't faze me, and I think that helps, because there's a lot of people that when they do well, that's when things go wrong. And you would think when they're doing well,
I've seen that
things go better.
Yeah.
But I've seen it all, and it's that thing of being able to put your emotion to one side. I've had a good month, on to the next.
You see it a lot, right? So like, we're both into UFC and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And there's probably loads of other sport and other examples of this, but what you see with the great champions, your GSPs, your Mighty Mouses, your John Joneses, etc., is when they get to champion status, they get 30% better, then they box it, like what you said, and then they keep getting better and better. Some champions that win the title and then lose on their first defense, their paparazzi's following them around, they're doing talks at different gyms, they're going on talk shows, they're going on podcasts with their belt, they got the sunglasses, their big chain and stuff, they're going partying and that, and then they go against this opponent, and this opponent isn't a champion yet. So they're grinding. They're like, I'm going to beat this guy. This guy's like, I'm the champ. Like, I've made it. It's like, you've got to that level. But like I said, the GSPs and the people that don't know UFC are probably thinking, who the hell are you talking about? But like the goats of the sport, or whatever sport, right? They box it. And I think what you've just said there is another nugget of wisdom and gold for people. Like, and I think I have had that as a recruiter myself, where I've had an absolute record-breaking month. I pulled the company's biggest retainer, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, I'm getting like my own custom-made suit," and then I'm being taken to lunches by the director, and I'm like, "I'm the fucking man."
Yeah.
And then it's like, "Whoa, hang on a sec." My ego, all of a sudden, everyone's looking at me like the paparazzi, like, "Oh my god, you're amazing." Fuck, that's scary.
Yeah.
Like, I need to park that for a sec, because I could just sit there and just chill, because I've got 20 jobs to work right now. But what happens if one of those clients goes, "Oh yeah, like pandemic happens, right?" Or whatever. Like, our company's just been bought by someone. We're pausing all recruitment. This other company, this has happened. Then what? What does, especially in perm, like, what does the next few things look like?
Yeah.
You have to dissociate, and that's another thing as well. And I'm sure you've experienced this. Like, I see a lot of recruiters; they're very emotional. What you said there about like taking the emotion out of it. Maybe a psychologist listening to this goes, "That's very unhealthy."
But of course.
I think for this type of role, like, people get really emotional about certain things. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, people drag on, and this client said this, or this candidate said they were going to take this. I've heard it a million times, and I think it kind of, when I say take the emotions out of it, I think where it really started was that month that I had in COVID, because I've done this crazy month, I've done crazy numbers, I've been paid a crazy amount of money, but all of my friends at the time were furloughed. So I wasn't going around like, "Guys, I've just made X amount and because it's, how can I go and rub it in their faces when
Yeah.
these guys are on the border of losing their jobs and the government are paying and the world's burning? So I think it kind of started from there. But it's also, it's bigger than you. Your client needs A, B, and C to help their business go. You've got a candidate that have their own needs. So sometimes you need to be emotionless to think, I'm not the star of this show because my client wants A, B, C. And this candidate wants a shorter commute, more money. It wants progression. So there's no point it being about you, you know, and I think people want to be the star of the show. Have a personality, be charismatic. I have no problem with that. But I've seen people come in, you know, they think they do 1 or 2 deals. They think like, you know, they're the person and they're great, but you just need to box it and keep going. It's the only way you will get better, in my opinion. But everyone's different. Like, there's no blueprint to recruitment. There's no blueprint to success because there's a million routes there, and there's a million ways to get there. And it's, how do you make your journey unique to you? And I think the most important part, which I'll get to next about the US sector, enjoy the journey. You know, because I think with US recruitment specifically, you know, how to become successful in that market, it's tough. Not because they're on the other side of the planet, the hours. You know, typically, like, when I was at Vivant, I was working like 10 till 8. Some nights I remember it got to a point, especially when I was a manager, I was coming in 10 till 10.
Yeah.
It's your life. Monday to Thursday, that's your life. You know, I'd go to gym in the morning because I had that little window. But, you know, you're really putting everything into it. You know, it's tough. Recruitment's tough in general. Add that into it. You know, it's kind of like you have no social life. But then it's like, oh, but there's these big fees. And then it's like, you've also then got to look at, you know, what's important to you, you know, and what can kind of make you go forward. So, you know, these things are always good for someone wanting to get into it. Recruitment's not easy in general. And I think to become extremely good in recruitment takes a certain personality, certain character, somebody that thinks outside the box, someone that's willing to challenge not the system, but challenge ways of thinking. You know, you're great because of this and that, and he's great because of that and that, and she's really good because of this and this, but how can you become great? By challenging people and opening up to having these discussions. So I think that's a huge part of it.
Well, I think what we were speaking about earlier about your mindset shift and the questioning, like I had a guy called Chris Hart. So as we're recording this was the episode that came out this week, and he's another trainer, right? And it was the most hilarious conversation. We were laughing so much during that episode, and he was saying like he sees other sales trainers and stuff like sell 10 stage program or whatever, and he was like, it's bollocks. It's just like, I don't really think you can sell a 10-step program to do recruitment because A, every sector is different, B, people are different. And what we were saying about like nailing down what you're really good at, tripling down on that, and then getting incrementally better. But he and I agreed on the main principle that this entire job, if you think about all the conversations throughout that process with the candidate and the client, your first call in your opener finishes with an open question, right? Then you ask some open questions around what you're looking for, Same thing with the client. Then when you're closing an offer, it finishes with a question. If I could offer you this, would you accept? You would. Fantastic. Great news. Got the candidate right. They can accept they've accepted the offer. When can you give me the contract? Tomorrow. Great. Okay, cool. When can we invoice that day? Okay, cool. It's all fucking questions. So for me, I feel sometimes a bit of a cop-out when people go, so like, you know, if you're going to come in and train our staff, like what's your kind of philosophy? Like, how are you going to do it? Just upskill them in asking questions and then understanding what makes that person good. Like, because that's another thing about like coaching is I can see the potential and I can see like by observing someone, like what their natural traits are or talents or whatever, and where I see them doing things that aren't particularly great, but they might not be able to see it. And the person that sat with them every single day, it's just they kind of tune out to those things. They're not acutely aware of those things. So when I go into businesses and they're like, oh, what did you work with little Jimmy on today? And I was like, we just fine-tuning questions. We just pulled up the little thing of paper. We just what are the things you want to know from a client? We broke down like 10 questions for each thing, and then we just role played a couple of those things. We did some phone calls together. Listen to him now, and little Jimmy's on the phone, and he's smashing it out, and he's asking fantastic questions, and I'm listening in and hearing the client go, "Oh, that's a great question. Let me take a second. Right, okay, so da-da-da-da," and then they're actively listening.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Yes, recruitment's hard, but actually the principle of recruitment isn't. Do you see what I mean? It's
I know.
It's the easiest, hardest job you'll ever do.
And I think there's also a huge thing around sales and recruitment and KPIs. You know, there's this whole thing around numbers, which, look, I think in general, I'm not going to quantify what you need to do to become a great recruiter. Every recruitment company has their own different thing. In the period where I left MLC to join Empiric, I think in a 2-month period, I was having about 2 or 3 calls a day with different recruitment companies. I can literally show you my calendar. It's insane. It was like non-stop, speaking to different companies. They all have different ethoses. They all have different ways of selling, what they want you to say, how many calls to make, how many numbers to make. It was, honestly, it was just non-stop. The whole time. It was like back to back to back to back to back. And then I think, you know, it's KPIs can be good. KPIs can box people in. I think KPIs can also get to a point where for me, it's the quality.
Well, KPIs, I spoke to a guy earlier about this. His whole business, they have no KPIs, they have no targets. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense to me. It's like, surely you have something. Like, what if someone doesn't bill for a couple of months? Where you just going to get rid of them? It was like, well, no, you know, we do measure some like CVs and stuff. So technically you do have KPIs, but it's almost been stigmatized in some aspects. I've worked in businesses where KPIs are a way to reverse engineer your main target, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to build 20 grand a month, how many CVs do you need to send to or how many jobs do you need to bring? How many interviews do you need to get? How many CVs do you need to get? How many candidates do you need to call? How many conversations do you need to have? If you make those calls and these CVs and these interviews, that's how you'll get to your target.
Yeah.
To the point where they worked out that every interview you book is worth 500 quid. So if you want to do 20k a month, don't know the maths, but you do the maths, that's how you're going to get to your target. But I've also worked in other businesses where they just use KPIs for KPI's sake. You got to post 2 adverts a day. You got to make 50 calls a day. You got to book 5 interviews a day. And it's like, why? If you can't quantify that figure for me, what's the point in saying it?
Yeah.
Because then you're going to get consultants that are going to hit those KPIs because that's what they think they need to do to be successful. No. What you need to do to be successful in recruitment is really fucking simple, is hit your revenue target.
Yeah.
If you hit your revenue target, right, an experienced recruiter like yourself or me, if you made 5 calls a day and booked 3 interviews a week, but smash your target, that might work for you. It might not work for little Jimmy over there or little Sarah over there.
But also, I think, you know, when companies put out there, you know, in general, you need to make X amount of calls, X amount of CVs, X amount of this, you could make 50 calls that they've asked and none of them have been good.
Or none of them are relevant.
They might ask you to send 6 CVs a day or whatever it may be, and those 6 CVs may be useless.
Yeah.
You know, so you've got to get to a point where you understand what quality is, but then you keep the momentum to keep that going. You know, there has to be a blended approach, and I think new people coming into the space, you have to do research. You have to be embedded in your market. You have to know about what are the news updates. You know, what's going on online, what's going on in projects. You know, who are the leaders in your space? You know, are you connecting with these people on LinkedIn? Furthermore, are you calling these people? Because people don't want to pick up the phone. And now when you've got the era of, you know, these plugins like Lusher or Lucia, whatever it is, and these other things where you can just call people, you know, some people get lost in that. You know, some people really do get lost in that because they're calling people, everyone's calling them. You're not the only person calling them. You know, there's a million people calling that person now because that's now accessible.
Yeah.
And because now everyone can call this person, how do you differentiate yourself?
Yeah.
And you need to look at yourself as a recruiter as your own business. What's my brand? What's my ethos as a recruiter? What do I want to be portrayed as, or how do I want people to look at me in the sector? You know, do I want to be known as just another guy that, you know, does tech recruitment, or just another guy that does healthcare? You know, do I want to be known as a girl who is the best finance recruiter in London? You know, there's, you kind of have to set yourself tasks. And coming back to the whole life cycle, you know, when I first became a manager and I was interviewing people, and even taking a step back from that, you have to have, what's your why? I don't know if you've heard about that before in recruitment. What's your why? What's anyone's why? Why'd you get out of bed? You know, why'd you like martial arts? Why'd you like this? You know, and it's a huge thing. It's, what is your why? And when I was interviewing people, you know, for me, when the going gets tough and things are bad, I have a bad week, a bad month, a bad quarter sometimes. What's my why? And I know my whys. So that's why I keep going and I keep pushing, because I know it's bigger than, you know, having a bad month, a bad
When
quarter.
you were in recruitment, because I know that you were always so fascinated about traveling the world and stuff, and you know, when people were hearing about your escapades in South America and stuff like that, like, I remember when we spoke, when you left Vivant to go traveling, you saved like 6 figures of your own cash, right? Yeah. Most people don't ever see that type of money in their life, let alone in the space of a few years, being able to, well, you know, whilst enjoying yourself, but be able to save that and go traveling by yourself. You know, some people go traveling on a minute budget, or maybe mum and dad help them out or whatever. Like, you know, was that your main why, or was there other things?
No, I think my why changed for sure. You know, in the beginning it was my why, and it has to change, because it was like, my why was, I want to save 5,000. My why was then, you know, I want to buy a house maybe, or put a mortgage down, or my why was, I want to be able to go eat at nice restaurants more frequently, you know, and there's your small whys and your big whys, you know, and I think it was that thing where I've always kind of been smart with money. I worked really hard, and I went at the right time when I went traveling, because financially I'd saved a lot of money. I didn't, and there's nothing wrong with this, but I didn't want to make money and spend every penny I had to go, come back, and you're like Groundhog Day. You're like, oh, I've got to do this again, you know, 6 years of hard work to just go. So, you know, luckily I was financially had a cushion. So it was like, I can go, come back, work things out, and we go from there. But then, you know, I think what recruitment taught me, and why I think I've stayed in it for so long pre-recruitment, I didn't really understand manifestation. Some people believe it, some people don't. Or even just simply setting goals. Never used to set goals. And one of my managers, when I was at Vivant, top man, like, I'll never forget him. Like, he's a really, really good guy, but he would always tell me, what are your targets? My first year had finished as a trainee, and he was like, next year, he's like, what's your targets? I was like, what do you mean, what's my targets? Like, I'm just trying to make some money, man. Like, you know, like, targets. And it was like, he got me to change my perception of, all right, I then broke it down into crazy things. What was my biggest quarter? What was my biggest month? What was my percentage of candidates accepting? And it was like, all right, let's say my biggest deal as a trainee was like 15K or whatever. It was like, I want to bill more than 15K in one deal. Let's say my biggest quarter was like 30, 40K, whatever it was. I want to make sure I beat that number. Then it got to a point where the goals I was setting, I was smashing and exceeding crazily. And I think it got to a point where I would then start putting really unrealistic targets, and I would get there. You know, every year. And there was certain points where it was like, I can't keep doing this, you know, and, you know, going back to kind of the whole traveling thing as well, when I first went, adapting to that for the first month, like, my brain couldn't comprehend it, you know, and I think going for 6 months, I had a routine. I'd go to work, Then I became a consultant. Then I became a manager. Then it was like, I have to come in. I have to look after other people. You know, I then became the office manager. So it's like my responsibilities grew and grew and grew and grew. You know, you're looking over everything. You're helping people. You're spinning plates. You're billing. You're speaking to client. Like, you're doing everything you can. And that first month away, it was a bit like, I don't think I felt this. I've had a holiday, 1-2 weeks.
Yeah, it's totally different.
Different. And kind of adapting. So obviously a lot of people don't know out there. It's like, I've created a YouTube channel at the time to go traveling. To, like, it's just a travel content kind of thing. And I think one of the reasons behind wanting to do that, you know, there's always that aspiration, you know, if I can become a vlogger or a YouTuber, it's like, why would I not roll the dice? But it's kind of kept me doing something.
Yeah. Bit of purpose, bit of routine.
Bit of routine, yeah. I mean, I brought my laptop out, told myself I was going to edit, didn't do no editing. I just filmed the whole time, you know. And then when I kind of had a break, it was like editing everything together. I've done the first 6 months, everything's out. I've still got 6 months I've done nothing with. And I need to get back to that project. It's a project I really need to kind of get back to, but it's also time.
Yeah.
It's like, you then look at, you work US hours.
Oh yeah, it's brilliant.
Now it's like, I go to the gyms in the morning. Once I go to the gym, it's like, that's kind of it. I come home at night, and you know, you don't have time for that. So weekends, it's a possibility. But also, I think being successful in the US, coming back to what we were talking about, one of the biggest things is being readily available. People don't know that, because people don't want to know that, because it's, you know, I work from 10 till 8, they're clocking off at 8. I'm taking calls at midnight. I'm taking calls at 2 8. Like, the time difference, you know, there's times where I'm getting a call from the West Coast. If it's a really important client or a really important call, I'm waking up at 2 a.m. to make that call, you know.
And a client will respect the fuck out of that as well.
And
if you woke up and you're a bit in, because I had a bit of humour as well, and I think you do as well. Like, if you're, you know, it's 2 o'clock in the morning here in the UK, like, you know, well, apologies if I'm a little bit like sleepy, blah, blah, blah. They'll be like, wait, you woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning to take my call? Wow.
But you know what? I think it goes further than that, because it's that thing where a client will respect you if you're willing to put the time into something. Making a call, following up with them, keeping on top of candidates, so when they have interviews, they know who the company are, they know what the role is, they know all the details. When I go on holiday, I don't switch off. I try to switch off as much as I can, you know, and I just can't. Maybe 70% of the time I do. It was like my most recent trip, you know, went away, I was speaking to so many clients, candidates, still sending candidates, ended up pulling a bunch of jobs when I was on holiday. But it's like, I want to. There's a barrier of, I have to, because my manager wants me to do this and the owner wants me to do this, or you want to do it, you know. And there's kind of two different lanes, and if you've got to be cut from, you know, a different kind of cloth, not only to do recruitment and be successful, but to do the US from the UK, because it's tough, you know.
It's savage. Like, a lot of people kind of get blinded by how big the fees are and stuff like that. And, like, you know, I remember when my last full year of doing recruitment, one of my good friends now made a bit of a joke that made me feel slightly depressed, and was like, you know, I think it was like, I resigned in like October, November or something, and at that time I was the second top bidder, and he said, if you had the same fees as that guy, you would have been on something like 590k for the year. The other guy did something like a third of the amount of deals, and was like 150k ahead of me on the bidding league. And when he said that, and he was like, I've looked at the number of deals that you've done, and granted, a few of those deals were the retainers, like you invoice a retainer, but I was like, fuck. I was like, if I just stuck at the US, but then it, like you said, it didn't fit my lifestyle. Like, you know, I do martial arts. Like, I was training twice a week doing martial arts. I haven't been able to properly train martial arts for 3 months because of my knee injury. I started back a little bit now. I could feel my mental health decline. I could feel, and it sounds psychotic when I say it out loud, like, if I'm not kicking things and people, I start to go mental. And, you know, lifting weights is all well and good, but that for me, I need to do something that works with that, not necessarily around it. I need to do something that works with it. But yeah, it's interesting, man. Look, I fucking love this conversation. This has been power, and I think there's so many little nuggets for people that are starting their journey in recruitment, or people that are doing really well but want to get to that next level. I think you've been tremendous. But as I'm sure you know, I finish every episode with the same question. Following this particular episode, how can people get 1% better in recruitment?
How can people... That's a great question. You caught me off guard with that. But I think, how can people get better? 1%. I would say... How can people get better with 1%? That's a good question, because there's a lot of things going through my head at the moment, but I can only give one answer.
Well, just whatever springs to mind first, I guess. And because, mate, there has been so many different things that I can think of from what you've said.
Yeah.
But if you could say one thing, what would be the first thing that you go, look, if you're a recruiter, trainee or principal or whatever, like what would be one thing that you would say, yeah, that's where you can get 1% better?
Consistency. I think you've got to be consistent through good times, through bad times. You've got to be consistent with candidates, with clients. You've got to be consistent with yourself. You know, if it's what you want and what you truly want to do, you know, there's going to be days where you want to quit. There's going to be days where you're on top of the moon, but you've just got to stay consistent. I think adapting, you know, is another huge thing. You've got to be able to adapt in your market, adapt with the times, you know, adapt with what's changing, you know, in the sectors. You know, are the fees changing? Are the structures changing? You know, some people don't do retained business, some people do. It's like, how do you leverage to get there? It's like you have to adapt, you know. There's so many kind of ways to do that, but I would definitely say consistency is got to be up there, because there's no point being great one month, then you fall another month, then you're slightly better the next month. Whereas if you're slowly consistent, you want that trajectory to slowly go up, and then you'll get to a point where you are at the top, and you just have to maintain. And that's one of the hardest things, because when I was at Vivant and I was doing really well and I was billing, and then it was like for 3-4 years, it was like, look, I was definitely competing with people around me, but I was competing with myself. And it's a dangerous place to be, because it was like every year I kept beating the last year's billing, and it was like, next year I need to beat it. Next year I need to beat it. And it kind of got to a point where it's not healthy, but it's also like wanting to be better than yourself. I kind of had to take a step back at a point and say, what am I doing? You know, but and being at the top and staying there is so tough, because you're there for so long. You know, if you are there for so long, you've just got to, you don't see the changes. Whereas people coming up, you've got a target on your back. You know, people still enjoy who you are, and they like you as a person, but they want that throne. You know, so it's tough, but I would say consistency. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, 100%, man. I personally think that's one of the things that people miss a lot in recruitment. Like when you look at the really successful people, and I've probably mentioned this guy's name a ton of times since the episode came out, but a guy called Ollie Stockford that came on, £2 million biller. Yeah. And he was basically just saying, like, look, there's no point trying to glorify the job. Like, when you put it in writing, it's quite boring. Yeah. It's about doing those basics, doing them well and doing them consistently. Like, you wake up in the morning, you don't feel so good, just do the non-negotiables. Just do them, and then you'll be successful. So that's a great answer, man. Well, I'll put your LinkedIn bio in the description of this. So, you know, people want to reach out to you, then obviously they can. For anyone that has made it this far, thank you very much for tuning in. And yeah, as you know, we do these episodes every Tuesday. So if you're new here, subscribe. If not, like, all the rest of it. And it's like 8 o'clock now on a Friday, so that's good. So yeah, thank you very much, guys, and thank you.
Yeah, thank you, mate.
Nice one. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the 1% Better Recruitment Podcast. If you got value from this episode, make sure that you're following the show so that you never miss an episode. And if you're listening on a platform that allows it, a quick rating or a review really helps people find the podcast. Feel free to share it with someone in your team or your network who you think would benefit. And just remember that small improvements daily lead to big results over time. So, thank you again for tuning into this week's episode, and I'll see you next week.